Hello, welcome back to Learn Oikonomia. Today we are going to discuss the concept of Laffer Curve. When it comes to this concept, we can establish a relationship between two aspects, tax rate and tax revenue. So, Laffer Curve is a graphical representation of the relationship between the tax rate and tax revenue, or the possible rates of taxation and the resulting levels of government revenue. Okay, so moving to the developer of this particular concept, it is Arthur Laffer, a very famous economist who has developed this concept, and he had developed this in the year 1979. And he had collected empirical evidences from various countries and plotted this in the form of a graph. And moving to the application of Laffer Curve, we could see that Laffer Curve was used as a basis for tax cuts in the year 1980s, or in the during the phase of 1980s by the Reagan administration. This is what a Laffer Curve is. When it comes to Laffer Curve, you will be measuring the tax rate along the x-axis and you measure tax revenue along y-axis. And moving to the relationship between these two things, the tax rate and tax revenue, it would suggest that the revenue would be declining. Tax revenue would be declining beyond a particular tax rate. Till a particular tax rate, the revenue will be increasing, but after that, the revenue would be declining. Okay, so let's consider more about it. As I told you, we are considering tax rate here and tax revenue here. And just start from 0% of tax rate. We have to consider some points on the Laffer curve and see what is happening. So at 0% at tax rate, you are having 0% of tax revenue. Let's consider this point on the Laffer curve. So at this point, you are having this much as your tax rate, and the corresponding tax revenue would be this much. Let's take this point. At this point, the tax rate would be this much and the tax revenue would be this much. What about this point? Again, at this point, the tax rate would be this much and the tax revenue would be something here. Again, what about this point? At this point, the tax rate would be here and the revenue which is generated out of this is here. Again, what about this point? At this point, the tax rate would be this much and the tax revenue would be something here. Okay, so what we could see till this particular point is that with increase in tax rate, your tax revenue is also increasing, isn't it? But what is happening after this point? Let's consider any other point after this particular point on the Laffer curve. Let the point be here. If you take this point, you are having a tax rate which would be here, and what is the corresponding tax revenue that you are having here? Only this much. That means your tax revenue is falling. So after this point, if the tax rate is increasing, if the tax rate increases, the tax revenue is falling, isn't it? For the very same reason, you can consider this point as the optimal point. And the tax rate which corresponds to this particular point would be the optimal tax. Okay. And what is the importance of this optimal point and optimal tax? If the government wants to maximize its tax revenue, it should make it a point that it is charging only something called the optimal tax. Because what happens beyond that, if it increases the tax rate, it will be only reducing the government revenue. And moving to the curvature of the Laffer curve, it would be something that would indicate that as the tax rate increases, the tax revenue will increase till the optimal point, isn't it? After that, if the tax rate increased, tax revenue would be falling. As I told you, the concept of Laffer curve was being used by the Reagan administration during the 1980s, but that doesn't mean that Laffer curve is free from criticism. It had got a lot many criticisms. One of the important criticisms is with respect to a reduction in tax rate will increase income inequality. So what if you are charging a less tax from rich? Less tax from rich means this is reducing the government revenue. Government revenue will be coming down, and this means the expenditure of the government will also comes down. So what will happen if expenditure of the government reduces? It will be reducing development. So it's a bad thing, isn't it? Again, besides this, we can see that whenever government increase the tax rate, that will be acting as a disincentive for people to go for work. So again, think about increase in tax, especially the income tax. So people will reduce their hours of work, because people will think, why should I go and work for more hours? Even if I get more income, I have to pay a huge proportion of the very same to the government in the form of tax. So why should I take some extra burden to give revenue to the government? People might have a tendency to think like that. And whenever hours of work falls, this will be reducing production. This will be again reducing development. Okay. So people will go for more leisure rather than going for remunerative work. Now, coming to the effects of Laffer curve on internal migration of skilled workers, this too has been questioned with empirical evidences. In short, what we could see is that even though Laffer curve has got many practical applications, the very same is not free from criticisms. That's all about today. You can like, share and subscribe to this channel for more videos, and thank you for watching. Also, you can join free our Telegram community for your doubt clearance. Link is given in the description box, and also you can download the Learn Oikonomia app from the Play Store. That's it. Stay connected for more videos.